Coming up on Network Africa, Nigerians in Sumi evacuated as Russia and Ukraine agree a limited ceasefire in the war. The United Nations says over 300 people have been killed in northern Ethiopia since November. Plus, Kenya signs deal with Moderna Incorporated to produce up to 500 million doses of COVID vaccines. A warm welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Adegoke in Lagos. Nigerians stranded in the Ukrainian city of Sumi have been evacuated. Buses arrived this morning to transport the Nigerians, mainly students, following a ceasefire window agreed by both Russia and Ukraine. The ceasefire ends at 9 p.m. local time. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Yama, confirmed on Twitter the students' evacuation and prayed for their safety. In another development, the Nigerian embassy in Bucharest, Romania, has asked that students wishing to remain in the country over the next month contact the embassy for hostel accommodation. They may also wish to call the following numbers: +40 749 335 927 or +40 786 091 964 for more information. Well, let's turn to Ethiopia now, where conflict continues in the Tigray region up north. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, says more than 300 people have been killed in airstrikes there since November last year. She gave this information at the Human Rights Council in Geneva, where she described a significantly deteriorated human rights and security situation. Ms. Bachelet says multiple airstrikes in Tigray and in neighboring Afar region had apparently been carried out by the Ethiopian Air Force.
Multiple airstrikes apparently carried out by the Ethiopian Air Force, ETAF, in Tigray and to a lesser extent in Afar resulted in civilian death and casualties and the destruction of civilian property. The office has recorded 304 killings and injuries to 373 people resulting from aerial bombardments during the reporting period. During this period, Ethiopia's human rights and security situation deteriorated significantly, in large part due to the extension of the conflict in Tigray to other parts of northern Ethiopia. Our office continued to receive reports of severe and wide-scale human rights violations in the context of expanding conflict in Afar and Amhara regions, as well as in Tigray. During the reporting period, our office received reports of 306 rape incidents by Tigrayan forces in the Amhara regions between the 1st of November and the 5th December 2021. Most of the reported survivors were women, a small number were men. Most survivors have not received any form of support since their ordeal.
State of emergency has been lifted. Detainees and prisoners, including leading figures of the terrorist group, have been released. At the same time, the government of Ethiopia has continued its constructive engagement with former President Obasanjo, the AU High Representative for the Horn of Africa. The government has also initiated a process to address the underlying political problems Ethiopia faces through an inclusive national dialogue. The National Dialogue Commission has been established for this national endeavor. Ethiopia reiterates its firm commitment to address human rights violation born out of our commitment to human rights. No heinous atrocity will go unpunished in our country.
In another development, the UN Special Representative for Sudan says though progress has been undeniably slow, there is still space to capitalize on the country's relative stability to pursue genuine democratic transition. Nicholas Haysom was addressing the UN Security Council on Monday. He said 2 years since the formation of the revitalized government of national unity of South Sudan, the ceasefire has continued to largely hold and civilian casualties have significantly reduced over the past year. He also said the overall humanitarian needs in South Sudan are projected to continue growing, yet donors' appetite to furnish additional resources is trending in reverse.
Slow implementation comes at a cost. Peace dividends remain elusive. Nowhere is this more clearly reflected than in the frustration of marginalized youth, many of whom have joined tribal militias, as we see in Yongle and the Greater Pibor administrative area, or channel their anger at humanitarians and peacekeepers. In 2021, 5 humanitarian workers were killed, and this year already 2 have been killed.
Given the challenges facing implementation, the critical tasks pending, and the agreement timeline nearing expiry, RJMEC has tasked the revitalized unity government to review the status of the implementation of the agreement and develop a clear roadmap and strategy within the framework of the revitalized peace agreement on how to implement the outstanding critical tasks as the end of the transition period approaches. The roadmap should be consensus-based with verifiable benchmarks and timeline.
To expect the South Sudanese to remain resilient in the face of COVID-19 pandemic and other trauma, losing our children, loved ones, being displaced from our homes, dying from hunger, floods, disease, and witnessing the impunity with which sexual violence, including rape and other horrific crimes under international law, have been committed under the watch of this Council and its member states is unacceptable.
In other news, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, hosted Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto on Monday ahead of a similar meeting next week with Kenyan opposition figure Raila Odinga. Well, details of the meeting was not disclosed, but Mr. Welby tweeted that it was good to meet Mr. Ruto and that he was praying for peaceful, open and credible elections on August 9th. Mr. Ruto is on the final leg of his tour in the US and UK as he bolsters his bid for the presidency. On Monday, he gave an address at Chatham House, a think tank in London, on Kenya's forthcoming elections. The deputy president has been sidelined by President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is supporting Mr. Odinga as his successor. Well, happening back in Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta has ordered authorities to re-register all motorcycle taxi operators following public outrage earlier today over an attack on a female driver in the capital, Nairobi. A video showing the woman, a Zimbabwean, being stripped of her clothes and screaming for help has been circulating online. Dozens of women showed up on the streets of the capital today holding a peaceful protest. The incident is believed to have taken place after an accident involving her car and a motorbike, prompting other taxi drivers to descend on her vehicle to intimidate her. Well, police have so far arrested 16 motorcycle operators in connection with the incident. Let's talk to Kenyan journalist with the KTN, Chebet Birir, for the latest. Hi, Chebet, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, good to hear you. Now tell us, what is the latest on this incident?
So far, over 200 motorcycle operators have been arrested, and 32 of them have been arraigned in court and have actually been charged 35,000 Kenyan shillings or 40,000 shillings bond. That is the development. Also, a lot of leaders in the country have come out to condemn the act, like the Chief Justice Martha Koome, who is a woman, has really condemned the act, and she says that she hopes that justice will be served in a systematic manner to ensure that these people are brought to book and they actually are answerable for their actions.
So how possible is it that, the woman was assaulted in public view and no one came to her defense?
It's really a sad situation. But if I can just make you understand the situation about border operators in the country, this is not the first time they're assaulting a motorist. Several cases have happened to a point where they ban vehicles, like late last year, they banned a school bus when the driver hit a border rider. So I think people were afraid to stop these men from assaulting the woman because of how violent these border riders have been in previous instances. In another scenario, they actually stole more than 500,000 shillings from a motorist who hit a border rider. So they have a tendency of taking law into their hands, and they actually assault motorists and ban their vehicles. So it is possible that nobody went to rescue the lady because they thought they would turn against the person who would rescue the lady. Because in all instances, if you tend to hit one motorcycle operator in this, it's just not in Nairobi, all over the country, they tend to turn against the motorists. They take law into their own hands and they turn very violent. So this is just one of the many incidents where these motorcycle operators have assaulted motorists here in the country.
And we've heard from government officials, Interior Minister Fred Matiang'i, saying he's shocked and disgusted by the incident. But how would the president order now for all motorcycle taxi operators to re-register? How will that fly?
Now, I think in previous instances, authorities have spoken and asked these motorcycle drivers operators to stop taking law into their hands. But I believe because now this one got actually, as you can see, it has gotten international attention. We hope that it will actually come to pass and they will have to be deregistered, because what we are finding is that most of these motorcycle operators turn out to be criminals. I mean, if they can ban buses, if they can steal from motorists, if they can assault a woman in public, in fact, while someone is recording, then this means they are actually criminals operating as border operators.
All right,
so the reason why the president says they be registered is so that they get to know the contacts and the profiles of these people, so that we are sure we are not registering criminals as border operators. So we hope that this time the president's word will actually be implemented. Back to you.
Indeed, and on this, International Women's Day, we hope something is really done about it. But thank you so much, Jabet Birir, KTN journalist in Nairobi.
Thanks too for having me.
To some coronavirus pandemic update, Kenya has signed a deal with U.S. biotechnology company Moderna Incorporated to build a vaccine manufacturing facility in the country. At least 500 million vaccine doses are expected when the facility is up and running. Meanwhile, Mozambique has recorded its first day of zero COVID-19 infections since the outbreak of the disease in the country in March 2020. On Monday, it also recorded zero deaths and zero hospitalization in 24 hours throughout the country. The country has so far recorded 225,140 infections and 2,196 deaths since the pandemic started. There were also no recoveries in the country in the last 24 hours. Still ahead on the program. It's International Women's Day today as the world is encouraged to break the bias. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Today is International Women's Day, celebrated annually, a day that commemorates the social, political and economic achievements of women all over the world. Women in different parts of the world use this day to come together to celebrate one another and rally for equal treatment and representation. The theme for this year's International Women's Day is Gender Equality Today for Sustainable Tomorrow. Well, this year's campaign is represented by the hashtag Break the Bias and calls on people to work towards a world that is equitable, inclusive, and free from bias and discrimination, so the playing field is leveled for women moving forward. In celebration of International Women's Day, the UK government has announced a £20 million fund to develop girls' skills globally. This is according to the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, who was speaking at the graduation of the first cohort of the UK government-funded Digi Girls programme.
We see when women are in leadership positions, whether it's a peace process or in responding to climate change, things get done. Women and girls get things done. So we're here to celebrate International Women's Day and the huge potential, and of course no country can succeed with 50% of the population not fulfilling their potential. So let me say just a word about the UK government. We're very fortunate to be working for a government under Boris Johnson who is absolutely 100% committed to women and girls. We'll be shortly launching a new international development strategy which has women and girls at the centre. And today Boris Johnson announced a new fund, £20 million globally, where we're partnering with business to develop girls' skills. And the programme is going to build very much on the kind of thing we've been doing with DigiGirls, but that partnership with the private sector is going to be key, and Nigeria will be one of the countries that benefit.
While the UN has reached gender parity at the senior leadership level, challenges remain, especially in the field. Women leaders are still needed in conflict situations around the world. Well, as we celebrate International Women's Day, the UN Senior Women Talent Pipeline, SWTP, is relaunching the Time to Lead campaign, highlighting the stories of courageous women leaders and encouraging women to join peacekeeping operations at the senior level. 20 years ago, UN Security Council Resolution 1325 recognized the impact of armed conflict on women and girls and the urgent need to mainstream gender perspectives in peacekeeping operations. For the UN, increasing the number of women in conflict and post-conflict peacekeeping missions is crucial to building credibility with local communities and establishing lasting peace and sustainable development.
The implementation of the gender parity policy is very progressive and has supported women in the peacekeeping operations, because now we have more women joining peacekeeping operations, both as uniformed personnel and civilian personnel. We have more women in leadership, and I would like to see a 50-50 of women and men, especially in leadership positions in the UN.
Conflict has two sides. And so it's important that we, who are part of the United Nations, have a representative role when engaging with women. We experience in conflict in South Sudan here too, lots of conflict-related sexual violence.
The mandate of the mission always talks about women, and thanks to the Security Council Resolution 1325, and we are very, very serious about looking at these things. So typically, let's say for example, we are going to do any activities, projects, even patrols. We will never do anything unless there's a woman, female perspective is into the gender perspective is into our activities.
Staying with women doing great things, a group of Algerian women have been meeting every weekend to kite surf. Now they are inspiring others to defy cultural norms and just ride the waves.
Every weekend, Karima Aitami grabs her board and her kite and heads to the beach to hit the unruly waves. The 36-year-old Algerian woman says kite surfing is becoming an increasingly popular sport in the country, with women defying taboos to take up the sport.
You don't have to be afraid of anything. You don't have to be afraid of judgment. Honestly, about society, morals and culture, Algeria has changed. Algeria changed during the past few years, and everyone can practice the sport they want, be it kite surfing, sailing or scuba diving. There's no prejudice anymore. I think there's no taboo and all women can participate. They just don't have to be afraid. At least for me, I didn't find any problem. I don't think there are any obstacles regarding the society.
Dozens of men and women can be seen dotting the beaches of the town of Boumediès, with many helping each other set up their gear as they prepare to face the wind and the sea. Kite surfing, considered by some to be an extreme sport, is one where the athlete steps on a board attached to a large kite and uses the wind to be pulled across the water, land or snow.
There are actually thousands of ways to break taboos today in Algeria, and sports is one of them. Today, here, there are many women with us, young and older women. They are here with us and we encourage them. We became a family. Then, eventually, breaking the taboo with this sport or even other kinds of sport is a thing we hope to see more often.
While Algeria is considered a conservative society, women on the beach say they have had no pushback about participating in the sport.
It has been almost a year that I'm practicing kite surf. In contrary, the vision has changed now, and it is more encouraging. They encourage us to start. I invite all women to try it.
Some men have taken to helping women train, encouraging them to become even more active in the sport. As of yet, there are no official teams or leagues for kite surfing in Algeria.
Well, our final story today is about Zara Abdella, a storyteller who has been documenting daily struggles of women across Egypt. Take a look.
Growing up as a child listening to her grandmother's bedtime tales, 36-year-old Zara Abdella uses storytelling as a powerful healing technique to help women like herself. Abdella lived in the upper Egyptian city of Sohag and worked as a teacher in a largely conservative upbringing that limits women's choices and job opportunities.
I'm Zara Abdella. I'm 36 years old. I came from Upper Egypt 10 years ago and found out that my dream is to help women tell their stories. My passion for storytelling started with my grandmother's bedtime stories when I was young. Writing and storytelling continue to be the space in which I feel comfortable the most. My dream came to a halt when I finished college and started working in many schools. And in Upper Egypt, jobs for girls are limited to working as government employees or teachers.
10 years ago, much to the objection of her family, she came to the Egyptian capital to chase her dreams. Powered by her love for writing and storytelling, she founded Wanas El Hekayat, a platform in 2017 to support women through storytelling workshops.
I started to work in many jobs here in Cairo, and I started to use arts and the passion for writing when I was young. I started storytelling and writing workshops until I started working on my initiative in 2017 called Wanas El Akayat, and under it I started my Voices Heard workshop in Sohag.
The idea to establish her platform started when she joined the Bussy Project, a larger storytelling project for women. There, Abdella told her own stories and the stories of other women in what became a liberating experience. The storyteller says she passed on a tool that once liberated her to other women to voice their fears, challenges, dreams, and aspirations.
With Bussy, to tell my story and listen to women and stand on stage to tell tales, mine and those by other women. For me, it was such a rich experience. It liberated me from inside. Stories that were kept inside me, suffocating me too much that I couldn't breathe, just because I could not tell the stories and didn't know where I can speak about them.
She's now facilitating similar workshops in Cairo for therapeutic writing and storytelling, an avenue the 28-year-old Nada says was a savior from depression. The mother of one was suffering from postpartum depression when she joined the workshop and discovered how a safe environment to tell her own sorrow was a powerful healing tool.
For me, the workshop was a savior. I was suffering from depression, postpartum depression. I was going on with my life, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I felt sad and my life was at a standstill, but I could go to work and take my son to the kindergarten.
Abdullah hopes she can organize more workshops around the country in the future.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke. Happy International Women's Day.